During the late 19th and early 20th century, many of the photographic standards we now take for granted today, such as film formats, shutter speeds, or film sensitivity, were anything but standardized, with each manufacturer having their own naming and numbering systems to describe different aspects of their camera or film. Aperture was one such aspect, as although the modern f-stop system was around, it sat among a plethora of various systems to describe the size of the diaphragm opening. Out of this assortment of systems, there are two alternatives to the f-stop system that you are most likely to stumble across on older cameras: Kodak's simple lens system and the universal or uniform system. The Kodak simple lens system was found on many of the cheaper early Kodak cameras or on the lower spec lenses for some of the nicer folding cameras. As far as I'm aware, based on my research, there's no real rhyme or reason to the numbering system beyond just using a simple numerical sequence to help make things easier for the amateur photographers of the day. This system is fairly easy to identify, as rather than being based around any sort of ratio, the numbers on the aperture scale will simply be in numerical order from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, depending upon the camera. The conversion between the f-stop system and the simple lens system is as follows. 1 is approximately f11, 2 is approximately f16, 3 is approximately f22, and 4 is approximately f32. Often abbreviated as the US system, this was an early attempt to create a standard aperture numbering system and would be adopted by Britain's Royal Photographic Society as standard in 1881. It would remain the Society standard until sometime around the turn of the century, when the modern f-stop system would replace it as the standard. However, it would see continued use into the 1920s on various cameras. Unlike the f-stop system used nowadays, which is based on the ratio between the diameter of the opening and the focal length of the lens, the universal system was instead based around f4 as its origin point of US 1, whereafter every doubling of the number represented a doubling in the time needed for an exposure. You can identify if a camera uses the f-stop or universal aperture system by looking at the numbers listed on the lens. Chances are, if you see any decimal places, you're dealing with f-stops. However, if your lens only uses smaller stops, you can determine the answer based on the increase in numerical value between stops. All f-stop numbers will generally be based on powers of the square root of 2, while the universal system uses powers of 2. Converting between the universal system and the f-stop system is fairly straightforward, as the math works out that f16 and US 16 are identical. This means that when using a lens with US system markings, simply adjust up or down however many stops from 16 to figure out what the corresponding f-stop is. This means that US 1 is f4, US 2 is f5.6, US 4 is f8, US 8 is f11, US 16 is f16, US 32 is f22, US 64 is f32, US 128 is f45, and US 256 is f64. Hopefully this video has been useful in helping you understand how to work with some of these older cameras, or at the very least giving you some insight into some quirky little pieces of photographic history.